Hi there, welcome to Sober Spring. We're looking at connection, and next up on the list is connecting with things that are meaningful to you. So, connecting with the idea of purpose. What are you here for? What is important to you? Now, I want to get into that as an idea by doing something which might initially seem a bit bizarre. I'm going to read out three paragraphs to you. I'd like you to pay a little bit of attention to them. The whole process is actually quite simple. First, you arrange things into different groups. Of course, one pile may be sufficient depending on how much there is to do. If you have to go somewhere else due to lack of facilities, then that is the next step. Otherwise, you are well set. It is important not to overdo things. That is, it is better to do a few things at once than too many. In the short run, this may not seem important, but complications can easily arise. A mistake can be expensive as well. After the procedure is completed, one arranges the materials into different groups again. Then they may be put into their appropriate places. Eventually, they will be used once more, and the whole cycle will then have to be repeated. However, that is a part of life. Do you think you could remember a lot of what I just said? Probably not. Do you think what I just said sounds a lot like gibberish? And it just seems disconnected from anything at all and therefore not really very memorable. Probably. However, if I said to you that they were instructions for washing clothes, do you think that would make a little bit more sense? I'm just going to read you the first paragraph and we'll see whether they make a bit more sense knowing that they're about washing clothes. The procedure is actually quite simple. First, you arrange things into different groups. Of course, one pile may be sufficient depending on how much there is to do. If you have to go somewhere else due to lack of facilities, then that is the next step. Otherwise, you are pretty well set. Now, I imagine you can probably remember a little bit more of what's going on. And if I read you the whole thing, you would be able to describe the process in steps, because understanding that they're steps for washing clothes makes it a lot easier to remember and process that. Because when you know what you're supposed to be doing, it makes things easier. It makes remembering things easier, but it makes making decisions easier. So let's take a red pepper and a sweet potato. Which of those would you think is? You would probably answer that by telling me what your preference was. Do you prefer sweet potatoes or do you prefer red peppers? Now, that relates a little bit to what we were talking about in the last video about understanding how you work and how you solve tasks. You can gain a little bit of understanding as to whether you're a red pepper kind of a person or a sweet person. But there's something a bit deeper to it than that, isn't there? It depends what recipe you're trying to cook, doesn't it? If you're trying to make a salad, then you're probably better off having a red pepper. If you want to make some chips, then you are probably better off having a sweet pepper, aren't you? So knowing what you want to do helps you to make those decisions a lot easier. The idea of purpose really helps us to connect with what it is that we need. Now, I want to be very, very clear. When I talk about finding things that are meaningful to you and finding things that are the purpose behind everything that you do, I don't mean that you have to become a crusader. I am not saying that you have to join the Avengers and put on some sort of lycra suit and save the world. Honestly, not everybody has to do that. Probably not everybody is in a position to do that for all sorts of reasons around skills and the position that they're in life in terms of the money and the job and all of those kind of things. See, I'm not saying you have to go out and save the world. However, I think it helps you to understand what is meaningful and what is important to you, because that helps you to make the decisions. If you think about the metaphor of life being like a shop, if you understand whether you're making a salad or whether you're making chips, when you go into the shop, you will be able to buy the right thing. Be buying sweet rather than red peppers, not just thinking, well, they're both reddish. They'll both do. So, how can we get to grips with what our purpose is and what's meaningful for us? Well, I think one of the best ways to do that is the 99 things experiment. So, what I want you to do is grab a piece of paper. You probably need two pieces of paper. You can use a digital document if you want, if you prefer that. And I want you to just start writing out things that you'd like to do. They don't have to be big things. They can be big things. They can be small things. Just write out an awful lot of things that you'd like to do. Don't limit yourself. Don't, think to yourself, oh, well, I'd like to do that, but it's impossible, so I won't put it down. I want you to just get out of your brain some of the things that you'd like to do. In fact, I want you to write 99, and I particularly picked that number for a very important reason. One, that sounds cool, doesn't it? But more importantly, 99 things is going to stretch you. You are going to have to think a lot. And somewhere around about the 70s or the 80s, you're going to write down something and you're going to go, I never really thought about, but actually it's something that interests you, that is meaningful to you, but has been sitting at the back of your mind and you haven't really been doing anything about it. So it will start that process of helping you to unearth some of the things that you'd really like to be doing, but you're probably not doing. So grab a piece of paper, actually, probably grab two, and write down 99 things that you'd like to do. Of course, I will see you on the next video.